Well, this is going to be either a very long video or I may have to break this down into several videos as I go over the Legacy edition of the Fantasy Trip by Steve Jackson Games. This is a huge box. I can't even fit the whole thing on the camera. Oh, sorry about that. The Fantasy Trip was actually the very first game I attempted to do solo, even before I knew the Fantasy Trip was out. There's a current company called Dark City Games, which if you watched my last video, I talked about it a little bit, where it had those little pre-programmed paragraph adventures, and inside was the basic rules for the game. And that was the first time I attempted to those are the first rule sets I used to try to do solo. Then I happened to, while I was goofing off online one day, came across old copies of the Fantasy Trip and got the PDFs and read through that and started playing solo for the first time using this system. So when this new edition came out, once Steve Jackson got the rights back after over 30 years, I had to get my hands on it. And this has a lot of stuff in there, and I'm going to attempt to go over all of it with you right now. But as you can see, this is a huge box, so I'm going to have to break it down. There's not enough room on this table to show everything all at once, so we're just going to do it in pieces, parts, and go from there. Alright. The first system that Steve Jackson came out with back in, I don't think it was the early or mid or maybe even late 70s. There's the credit information. Was Melee. Melee was originally designed as basically a quick create a warrior. Your friend creates a warrior, and then you two go to town just pounding on each other. And it gives you the rules for creating your character, creating your figure, and all the combat rules, bonuses, penalties, etc. And it was literally designed as like a lunchroom game. You can make your character, swing some dice, knock each other out, and be done in just a few minutes. It's quick, it was easy, which is one of the things that helped gravitate me toward it for doing it for a solo, because it was so easy, yet still had some depth and crunch to it. In fact, this game comes with some pre-made cards. Let me dig those out for you. And I mean, literally, this is your character sheet. Put your notes on the back. It's got your ability scores. These are pre-made. And they give you some blank cards that you can use wet or dry erase on to make your own characters on. And like I said, literally, you can have a character made in less than 5 minutes, if that. I'll probably take, your first time around, of course, will take a little longer, but once you get used to the system, you'll be making a fighter ready to go into battle real quick like. After that, he decided, okay, let's add some magic. So then he created Wizard. And then here's a book here that shows you how to play the Wizard game, which a lot of the information that's in here is also covered in here. But then again, you also have, well, spells. Can't play a wizard without some magic spells. And then there you go. You're able now to take either a melee type or a wizard type or both and just start slamming each other in the arena. A couple of years later, he goes, well, we've got the rules for fighting. We've got the rules for magic. Why don't we make a role-playing game out of it? So he did. So he came up with The Fantasy Trip Into the Labyrinth. It's a soft cover book. It's real good condition. Came in nice paper, quality. It's a really good book. And in here you have all the rules you need for role-playing, making up your characters, magic, designing a labyrinth, creating a world, customs, equipment, advanced combat, advanced magic, all kinds of goody information. I'm just going to flip through the book here real quick. You can get a quick glance of it. That right there is your standard half-page character sheet, which is usually more than enough for a starting character. It's got the updated spells for the game. It's got that old school art, rules for leveling up. This now there is a few pieces of artwork in here that look a little weird. More than likely it was Steve Jackson and his crew or some Kickstarter people that, well, I like that one there, that supported the game. But even though this is over, let's see, it's 176 pages. Last couple pages are index and things of that nature. Once you've read through this book, you'll be able to literally make a character or an NPC in less than 5 minutes. It's not that complicated whatsoever. And it still has enough depth to keep you interested. It's not the simple game that Melee and Wizard was. This is a full, in-depth RPG. I might make a video later going in-depth into this book. Oh, excuse me there. Almost lost you. He also came up with 2 pre-programmed adventures, the Death Test and Death Test 2. Oh, I didn't realize I got more tokens in here. I'm going to have to punch those out and put them in my token bag. But if you need miniatures, you can't afford the big fancy ones, these will work. You can buy the whole Legacy Edition from the website, or you can just buy the pieces that you want separately. The Legacy Edition also comes with this awesome DM screen, which on the player side gives all the players the information they need at a glance, as well as that little map of the known world. And then on the inside, everything the DM would need. Or in the case of people who watch this channel, everything you would need to run solo. Just plop it up in front of you, and you'll have everything you need while you're playing your game. Legacy Edition also comes with 3 pads of character sheets. Of course, I'm old school. I make my own. Dice. Only dice you need for this game are D6s, usually 3 or 4 D6s. If you're just interested in Melee itself, you get a few packages there of character sheets solely for Melee. I've already punched most of them out, but you get a ton of counters that you use as miniatures. Like I said, if you can't afford to go out and get the metal or the plastic miniatures, these come in handy. I keep them in the bag just in case I don't feel like digging up my miniatures. I can just use these for whatever game I'm playing. Even if I'm playing another system, I can still keep these handy and use those to quickly play out my game. The game also comes with this Tolkien ARS Layer, which is an adventure created by Steve Jackson Games. I flipped through it and looked through it real quick. It looks pretty interesting. For those of you who must have a fully detailed character sheet, you get one of those that you can make copies of. A hex map. This uses hexes, not squares. More copies of the half-page character sheet. Place keep notes. General notes about the weapons and how they work and their costs. Armor, equipment, list of options, more character sheets. So depending on how detailed you want to make your characters, well, you've got everything you need right there. Just photocopy that. You get a couple of their hex maps, one that goes with Tolkien ARS Layer itself, and then one that's just a generic map that you can use to create your own dungeons. You get a little map of a village, and you get a map of the countryside, the duchy, the barony, I forget what they call it, but you get that nice hex map. So if you want to do like a hex crawl, you can use this for your hex crawls. You also get, looks to be 2, 4, 6 pages, or I don't want to call them pages, but 6 pages worth of cutouts to create your own hex adventure. And you get this really cool big giant 14 hex dragon. Yeah, I don't want to fight that guy. And what's really, another really cool thing is, if I can show you, it is, like I said, this box is huge. Inside the box lid itself, just drop some dice, and you've got a random labyrinth drop table to create a random dungeon. That looks pretty cool. So that's just a quick overview of the Fantasy Trip Legacy Edition. Like I said, you can buy Melee and Wizard and everything, all these pieces parts separately. So if all you're interested in is the role-playing book, you can get that. If all you're interested in is the Melee or the Wizard, you can get that. I'll put the link down below in the description. If you have any questions, feel free to post them. And until next time I see you, happy gaming.